Welcome to the Wellness on Tap podcast with your host, Dr. Debs Eastwood.
But I think the story's the best way in.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I've found that with a lot of people that I've spoken to before, and it gives me a lot of pointers to come back to, which is really nice. So it's one of my favourite things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what I would like to do is ask you, why water? Where did it all begin? I mean, water's everywhere, isn't it? We all drink it, we bathe in it, whatever. But there's got to be a reason why water drew you.
I think it's more about when I realised water had more properties than I was told in chemistry class, that it was just H2O. And when I saw the profound change in me simply by changing my water. And I didn't think much of it at the time. And the first thing that I noticed actually was the health of my pets. I had a cat with cataracts and another one with kidney disease. And when I switched them from tap water to distilled water and remineralised the water, the kidney disease went and so did the cataracts. And I thought that was remarkable because there's no placebo effect there. But when, for me, after 3 months of drinking distilled water that I remineralised with grey sea salt and charged with a copper rod, I was at this fair and I was telling people about how to detox. I'd made some detox capsules, which I can tell you about. But I started seeing the light coming out of crystals because this lady was doing some crystal healing. And I thought there was a torch at the end of her crystal. And I said, wow, that's beautiful. How do you do that? Is there a torch at the end? She said, what are you talking about? And I thought,
wow.
And so I also noticed when she put it down, it didn't glow. But when she lifted it up, this light was coming out. And somebody else there could see the light as well. She says, oh, you can just see. And so we did an experiment. We went back to the lady's house who had the crystals and we did an experiment because my science training's kicking in here and I want to just double check I'm not going crazy. And we were separated and we had separate pieces of paper. And the crystal lady who would hold up the crystal, she couldn't see it, she could feel their vibrations. And then we would describe what we were seeing. And then we would look at our answers and we were seeing the same things. So we could see wavelengths and they were either far apart, close together. It kind of radiated out different amounts. The distances between each wave was different and we got it spot on. And this is how I completely knew that what I was seeing was more of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. I wasn't all of a sudden like woo-woo or magical overnight. I detoxed my body. And at that time, the main impact was from the water. And when I think about my cat's cataracts, it made sense to me that I could just see more. And I also used to wear glasses to look at monitors and things like that. And I didn't need to wear them anymore. And it was literally just shifting debris and things that don't belong in my body into my body. And as I then taught people how to detox, what I found is like some people would follow my 5-step process all the way through. And the first part is water. And some people would get so much benefit out of just doing the water that they wouldn't do anything else. And they'd carry on drinking wine or eating rubbish food or cooking with toxic, cleaning with toxic chemicals. But you know what? They still were better. So I realised that actually the most important thing that they did was to stop drinking water just from the tap and doing more with their water. It was the water that had like 50% of their problems went with the water.
Which is remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something we take for granted, isn't it? That it's there in everybody's house and nobody thinks about it. But how we can make the water so much better, I think is just phenomenal.
It's a very underlooked thing. And a lot of people think I think they kind of realise, and they kind of drink tap water and things like this. But some people don't realise. And I've got a friend who I've been trying to gently hint that some of the reasons that maybe she's not 100% as well as or as vital as she could be is her water. And she puts squash in her, cordial in her water to hide the taste. And she was ill a couple of weeks ago. So I've been doing this for 4 years, and she's like, oh, I haven't got the time, I haven't got the money. But she'll go on holiday, to exotic places several times a year. But because to her it's like it wasn't important. And when she was sick, I said, look, I've just got some pure water for you. It'll help cleanse your system. And she was like, oh yeah, okay. And so she poured the water out and drank it. And she wanted to do a taste test because this is the thing that was motivating her. She wasn't really listening to anything else. It was the taste. And she said, when I tasted the difference, I'm now sold, she said, because I can now understand what you mean by I can taste the chlorine. I've just not even noticed that I can taste the chlorine, but now I'm going to get a filter. So now I'm really glad to say that she's got a really good quality filter. She's going to remineralise her water. So she started on that journey. And I'm going to start seeing more and more of her evolve because of this. And she's not going to probably, for a while, even realise it's to do with the water. I wouldn't say the only thing you've changed is the water, but you will see massive impacts on your health and mental health and just vitality.
Which is fabulous, isn't it? And everybody should be doing it without a shadow of a doubt. Something as simple as that. If it's going to make her feel better again and perhaps even go down the route of prevention of further bouts of illness. It's a no-brainer, surely.
It is. And when you think about what I was talking about 4 or 5 years ago was that water isn't just H2O. It is, it's hydrogen and oxygen. But the charge of those molecules, particularly hydrogen, has a huge impact on the water. And I was looking into something that's called structured water. And there's a lot of people out there that have talked about structured water in the past, but I don't think they've explained it in a way that the general public get. And that's one of the things that I try and do. I try and take very complicated information and translate it into analogies and stories or pictures that people can understand because of my scientific background. I'm used to doing that. And I was confused between what's the difference between charged water and structured water and all of these things, and easy water and all these things. And actually, they all mean the same thing. They're just looking at it from a different perspective, because what I found out is when hydrogen is negatively charged rather than positively charged, it can go into the cells. Whereas if it's positively charged, it sits on the outside of the cells, and the positively charged aquaporins don't allow them to go in. Two positives repel each other. And then it goes into the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the car engine of your body. And it is your fuel. And the mitochondria make hydrogen peroxide. And that is basically a chemical way of explaining negatively charged hydrogen. Whereas most of the water we drink is positively charged hydrogen. And so it forms a structure more like H2O. It's almost like those molecules have kind of mixed together. They don't form any structure because there's a bit of positive here, a bit of negative there. So it's kind of a mess. But then when you negatively charge the hydrogen, what happens is it creates a structure because the negatives kind of repel and they end up making this structure. Whereas if you look at it two-dimensionally, it's a hexagonal structure. And if you look at the structures three-dimensionally, it's a tetrahedron. And for those of you trying to get your head around what a tetrahedron is, it's like a pyramid, but all the sides are triangular, and it's got 4 triangular sides. So when you charge it correctly, it forms these triangular structures, these tetrahedrons, and also can get into your cells. Now, when you start to realise that crystals are all made of silicon dioxide, which also has exactly the same structure. Silicon dioxide creates a hexagon, and three-dimensionally that will look like a tetrahedron. This is why crystals and water work together, and why the fastest computers in the world that exchange data and present information, like on your liquid crystal display, your phone screen, your laptop screen. This is why the fastest quantum computers in the world are made of quartz crystal and water, because they not only hold information, but they can easily move information through their structure extremely fast at quantum speeds. So that's where the new Earth technologies are coming from, these quantum computers, and why you're also hearing about hydrogen cars. Really, okay, it's water, but it's very, very negatively charged hydrogen in the water. And that's what fuel in the cars. And we're going to see more and more of that in our society. But people just think it's hydrogen. It's not. It's really a version of water, which is enabled because of the charge of the hydrogen in that water. So this is going to be the future.
You've got me thinking there on a couple of points. The thing that struck me when you were talking about liquid crystal displays, I'd never thought about it like that before. Obviously, it's a term I'm familiar with. But a lot of what we talk about in the holistic or complementary world, and we're a bit different because we've both got scientific backgrounds to come at this from, and we are hopefully going to be the catalysts to push this forwards. But a lot of people don't have that, and they will look at things holistic and go, crystals, what's that got to do with a computer? What's that got to do with tech? What's that got to do with hardcore research and science? They don't see the link. And I think you just explained it beautifully there.
Thank you very much. And this is what you and I are going to be doing. We're trying to bridge the science, because as we have both, grown up in our scientific medical disciplines, they stick everybody in silos. And this is why we're not taught things in that way. You kind of taught your discipline, you go very deep. And in the last 6 years, I've gone very deep with this. And I understand that we have some of the similar language, actually in medical and in scientific terms, like we talk about blood plasma. I mean, why do they use the word plasma? Well, plasma is a fourth phase of water. and your DNA is plasma, and your spinal fluid is plasma. And in that state, basically, you can think of your body as a quantum computer, because that's exactly what these new quantum computers are made of. They are mimicking the body. And so we have a lot, whenever you can understand what's going on in the tech world and the software world, that's really mimicking what the human body is. But that's talking about it, I guess, on a deeper level than, say, the 3D. So 3D science is all about observing things that have happened. So I guess if we were looking at a computer and we were 3D looking at things, we'd go, oh, a light's come on. And when that light comes on, when I press that switch, so there's a cause and effect between pressing the switch and the light coming on. That's 3D. And that's what a lot of science and physical science and medical science is all about. They don't think about, well, actually, how did that happen? And this is where we have to bridge those sciences. And even, let's say we were going to go then and say, well, actually, we need to think about electrical science and think about electrons moving along. Even in that, electricity, electronics, again, that's very 3D. It's talking about electrons kind of moving down a chain. They don't move anywhere. The electromagnetic field flows in the quantum. And one concept I'm starting to do is try to explain what quantum is in a way that people can understand, because people throw that word around and how do you understand it? But I think I've got a decent analogy, if you bear with me.
I'd love to hear it, yeah, because I agree with you completely. It's something that, we are starting to hear more and more, and there are different takes on it. But there is a nub of core of understanding that's going to be common to all, isn't there?
Yeah.
Please enlighten us all.
I'm going to try and make it simple, but Have you ever seen one of those pictures? And when you zoom out, it's like a picture of Elvis or something like that. But when you zoom in, you can see that it's made of, let's say, individual small pictures of, I don't know, ladies in dresses, for instance. So the question is that pictures of ladies in dresses, or is it a picture of Elvis? And the answer is, it's both. It depends on whether you zoom in or zoom out. Let's have a think about then, if we wanted, let's say this is a black and white image. The reason why your Elvis is black and white is not because Elvis is black and white, but the ladies of the individual pictures are black and white. So imagine now I change the colour of the dresses of the ladies, and when I zoom out, all of a sudden Elvis is a different picture. I didn't change Elvis. Elvis is like obviously 2D because it's a piece of paper, but it's exactly the same with 3D. I had to change at the deeper level what you can see when you zoom out level, and that's the 3D, right? But then imagine, how did you make those pictures of those ladies, right? They're made up of dots, of pixels, and then you change the colour of those. But also, I could change the material. Right? I could make it out of those dots out of like dots of copper or dots of carbon or dots of silver. And so this is about, and this is a complicated thing to remember, when we talk about dimensions in 3D and 2D, the higher you go in dimension, the more you are going into the quantum, because the more you're going inside and looking at the details that make something up. And then what you realise is those dots of copper are actually made of magnetic fields, and you are just perceiving them as that. And everything is made of magnetic fields. And at the end of the day, if you want to change the picture of Elvis, the quantum is right in the higher dimensions, or the quantum level, right deep in, you change those. And the magic of nature and where we are at is that we're all made of the same stuff when we go right into that quantum level, at the level of the dots, but even below that. And if you were to get those same dots that you made Elvis, right, and you rearrange them, the picture would look very different, but it's still made of the same stuff. How was that?
Marvellous. I've got a lovely concoction of my mind is spinning, but with better understanding at the same time. First off, when you were on about changing the colour of the ladies' dresses, my head went to pop art.
Yes.
I don't know why, but it just did. It just saw, Elvis is depicted in pop art. But I think that's a great way of explaining it. The deeper you go, the more detailed, the more dimensional
That's
you get.
exactly right. And the more science is coming out now is understanding that quantum level, and it's not taught to the physical sciences. I mean, my physical sciences were, first degree was in genetics and microbiology, master's degree in oncology, and my PhD was in immunology. And that is all about observing the Elvis pictures.
Yeah.
And nothing there below. And that's what's really missing, but that's what is coming in. And I think we have to be the changers, because until the syllabus changes, that people aren't going to know. And I would say I've learnt more about the quantum nature of our reality and quantum science by doing my own research in the last 6 years than probably anything that I was taught like 20 odd years ago. And we have to educate ourselves in these things, and not just have to, it makes so much more sense than kind of randomly conducting experiments and just looking at put a load of like pictures of Elvis in a room, mixing them up, and then noticing that they're observing that they're different. It's like, why? How? And I used to be that as a child. I don't know about you, but I was like, why?
Yeah.
Oh no, it just is. Why is the sky blue? Why?
Yes. I remember that with my children as well. Please just accept it when you get to the end of your possible explanations. But what you were saying there about the education, you were so right, because we are all taught in a specific way, aren't we, to know certain things. And even going through master's level and degree level, which is supposed to support critical thinking and analysis, which it does in some ways. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's still not as free as we both believe critical thinking should be allowed to be. Because surely that's where the discoveries lie.
Surely. And this is why I left academia, actually, because I could see that there was some kind of agenda with who got funding and who didn't. And it was about politics. It was about politics and who you know. But most importantly, and I remember this word being bandied around all the time, everything had to fit in with central dogma. Do you remember this? How many times did they use that word? So if me and you were going to publish a paper today, we would have to reference papers that had come before. If we had 0 references because we were taking a completely different perspective, it wouldn't get published. So all the science is based in this kind of circular kind of momentum. And it's you can't get anything published in the scientific journals if you don't have this circular mentality. And so an example is, this is maybe one of the first ones that I can remember, and we broke a little bit out of it in terms of the immune system, but we've not gone far from it. It was like the immune system works on self and non-self. Yes. And then we broke out of that central dogma in 1986, and my understanding was, I can't remember what the lady's name is, and I used to have it on the tip of my tongue. She was amazing. She was a waitress in a cafe, and she was talking to these scientists, and then eventually went to university, and it was her really that broke that paradigm. She came from somewhere else. But even now we understand that the immune system is made in the gut, and it can be something that, I mean, we are very much not just human cells. There are more cells in our body that are not human than are human. And our gut is extremely important, but it's really undervalued in terms of what you have to do to keep it healthy, for instance. And one of the things that I figured out during the last 6 years is, at least I think when I did my PhD, etc., it was still kind of on that vein. That I was taught that you needed to eat a bushel of dirt before you were 2 years old, something like that, and you would have a really hardy immune system. And I could see around lots of people bathing their kids every day, using Dettol every day. And I knew that this was a bad thing. But the advice from, say, the NHS was trying to ultra clean everything. And I was told, the baby's father is allergic to peanuts, don't eat peanuts. And I said, but I'm an immunologist. If I want them not to be allergic to peanuts, what I have to do is I have to eat peanuts. So I was eating peanuts. And my kids don't have any allergies, right? Because, and this taught me that actually what people get taught, let's say in the NHS and medical profession, is completely different to what's in the science. And we're very separated, and that's not the way to go. And so I started, speaking out about things. I call myself an independent scientist. Nobody pays me. I'm looking at things, experimenting things, and every day is a different exploration. And I'm not just going to follow the books. I'm going to follow my own observations and see what I can see. And that's really opened my mind. So rather than studying a book and then trying to learn based on that method, I'm following my mind and the thoughts and how I'm piecing the jigsaw together, which I think that would probably label ADHD. I don't think it is. I think it's a superpower. I'm very good at collecting complex pieces of information and being able to piece it together and say, I don't need to, if I've got a 1,000-piece jigsaw of a horse, I don't need to put all the 1,000 pieces in to realise it's a jigsaw of a horse, right? If I carefully put a few of them in place, I'm done. Whereas I think science will give you the edge and then the other edge, then the other edge. And you're I still don't know it's a horse after ages. So perhaps I'm a little bit impatient like that, but I'm taking information from all sorts of different scientific fields and piecing it together and then working how it impacts our reality. And what I learned from eating that bushel is the microbiome of the earth is the same as ours. We are connected to the earth because that's why you have to eat the bushel of the earth. And then when you think about that on a quantum level, the frequencies in the earth, like those quantum magnetic fields, i.e. the dots that make up the picture which we see as soil, or the dots that make the picture that we see as our gut biome, they are made of the same pieces. And if we understand that we can connect to nature and we actually are exactly the same thing, we're just kind of arranged in a different way so it looks different from this point of view, we can start then working on those on the quantum level of connecting us with all of the frequencies and all the goodness that's in earth that we might be missing in our environment. And with the food that we're eating, in the mainstream supermarkets, it's mineral depleted. Yeah. What that means is we are missing some of those dots. So I explain it like you're trying to build the millennial Falcon with Lego, but you've only got the red blocks. So you're missing it. So we are missing these frequencies because of our lack of connection to the earth. But also, we don't necessarily have to ingest them, because if it's all magnetic fields and everything is around us, there are different ways we can connect to our missing frequencies other than taking a substance or a mineral that is missing and putting it in our body. Because again, that's like taking the pictures of the ladies and putting them all together. Whereas if we go to the magnetic fields that make up the pictures of the ladies, or make up the carbon and arrange them and whatever, we can do the same thing. And this is, so I think things like the Star Trek replicator of their food and all that kind of things is entirely possible. And I'm, in touch with scientists around the world that, certainly understand how this is the case. So I think we've got a very exciting future if we embrace this. We've got a lot of good things to come.
I would entirely agree with that. And I think we need more people that can just put a few pieces of horse in the jigsaw and see the whole picture, that don't have to pedantically, if you like, work around the edges first and find all the bits that are currently fashionable in the world of science and that, like you say, have some precedent before them that you can quote and reference. There has to be so much more free thinking.
Well, when you look at the work of Dr. Emoto and Vader Austin, you understand that, and for those of you that haven't seen this work before, that when you freeze water and you make it crystalline, basically slow it down so that you can see it. I mean, it's there, right? It's just, it's too fast for you to see the frequencies. So it's like looking at a bee with its wings flap, whatever they do, flap, hover, whatever the word is for bees. You can't see it on the bee. It doesn't mean they're not there. It's just too fast. So when you slow it down by freezing it, all of a sudden you can see a frequency imprint in the water. So you know that your thoughts can interfere with water. You know that water through hydrogen carries information because the world's fastest computers are built on water and crystals. So in a lab, when we're just mixing reagent 1 and reagent 2, and they're always in solutions, to think that environment is not affecting the experiment is crazy. And I always remember thinking, like working in the lab, why does it take so much to repeat an experiment? And people would literally be in the lab, for the PhDs and things like this, right? They wouldn't get the experiment right until 6 months the end of the PhD, i.e., the experiment didn't show them the result that they wanted for 2.5 years, and they kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And that tells me it's not repeatable. They might have been able to get a few in a row at that time and being able to publish it in line with the other stuff that has gone before. But for every experiment or paper that you see published, there's thousands that have gone in the bin. And this is because we're not taught about the quantum nature of our reality or water or programming, which is why I now really don't trust research done like this, because it's misunderstood. I even remember in lab books, you would have to write every day things like, room temperature and pressure. You never used to write into there what the electromagnetic frequencies were going on in there, which we know affect water. There was nothing in there about that. And I also know that 9 times out of 10, more than that, most people did not keep up-to-date lab books. This is a discipline nowadays which is not governed by the supervisors. They're not checking anybody's work. What they have is they need to get a certain amount of funding in, and to get that funding, they need to produce a certain amount of papers. And those papers need to be in a certain type of journals, and whatever article you're writing needs to match up with whatever the funder's given you. And it's very easy to influence that data. So that then when I went on to work more in the commercialisation of research, where academics might have something that was more applicable to humanity. I mean, there's lots of great science done, but a research paper isn't proof. You need to do proper, industrial kind of scale beta testing and things. Out of the papers or the research that the scientists were really excited that they discovered, at least 9 out of 10 weren't repeatable, but were published, right, and peer-reviewed, because people get confused between peer-reviewed and it's true. And then when you did it, properly scientifically, when you took yourself out of the equation because you wanted it to work, you took the university out of the equation because they wanted it to work. And then with those, few that were, did actually work, when it actually came down to doing it kind of properly, I guess, or more thoroughly, like an independent manufacturer would make it, or it would independently be tested, it was never as strong as the first experiments would say. And that is because, I don't doubt the data that they got, but you influence the results completely. And I did actually remember in the early 2000s writing to the BBC and many other kind of news stations to stop picking out journal articles and repeating them to the general public as if they're the truth, because they are miles away from the truth. They are back at the fag packet, a little bit on from that.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just got a vision of all the profs around the country in the unis now scribbling on backs of fag packets in their offices. I used to think that was an awful part of the job, and something that I never wanted to do was just sit in an office all the time writing grant applications that inevitably, if they're not fashionable, get rejected, and writing papers that you have to resubmit and resubmit and resubmit. It just seemed like very dull, drudgery stuff to me that, occasionally you get breakthroughs, in my opinion, things that were scientifically relevant. But most of the time, like you've just been saying, it's just a little bit more information on the same.
I think we're all so different, and it's not possible to get large groups of people together and give them anything and really come up with any conclusions, because everybody's life is so varied, and you can only measure what you observe, or observe what you measure. Those two words are interchangeable. So whenever they're getting these large studies and they're categorising people into groups, and they're publishing what's in one group and what's in another, that isn't even a snapshot of what can really go on. Because you don't know what's going on in that person's life, like emotionally. Electromagnetic frequencies are a huge part of people's lives, and everybody's life is so different with that regard. And yet they don't even take that into account. And it has a huge influence. Wherever you live, the room that you're living in, the place that you're living in, there's so many frequencies out there now impacting us. But then again, our ability to cope with those frequencies varies person to person. And they don't even measure it. It's like, we don't know anything about that. So we've just put people into 2 different groups. Roughly speaking, that group's that and that group's that. And it's like,
Is it really?
It's absolutely not at all.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about the Dr. Emoto photos, I've just come back from a retreat where they have crystal-infused water. They run it under the labyrinths that you can walk. The properties on, a crisscross of ley lines. It's a fantastically spiritual place. And they have pictures of their water taken. It's Kirlian photography. That pictures of water before it's gone through the labyrinth, where it's just come out of the ordinary pipe work, from the council, and how disorganised that pattern, the crystallisation of that water is. And yet when it's come out of the labyrinth, for just a graphic illustration, it looks like a beautiful snowflake.
Yeah.
How we would see that. I mean, obviously there are variations on that field, but just for illustrative purposes. And his research also said that if you actually speak to the water, that can have the same sort of effect, doesn't it? Which, when I first heard that, was mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm. We influence our bodies. People say we're made up of 60, 70% water, but actually on a quantum level, how much hydrogen and oxygen we are we're pretty much hydrogen and oxygen. That's the most things. That's the most waves. And then some carbon, a bit of nitrogen, and the rest not so much of, right? So we are hydrogen. We are these hydrogen computers, and we're receiving information and programming that information all the time, either with the things that we're putting in our body, the things that we're thinking, or the electromagnetic frequencies around us. And we have to understand that in order to live healthier lives. And I'm really glad that you mentioned life force energy, because that's something anybody that can see. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how I've taken that knowledge and that work, and we're now boosting people's life force energies. And you can see this. And there's a video of me when I don't need Kirlian photography. There's a video and photo somebody took of me because I was wearing one of our devices that we created at Crystal Water Experience with Kelly, who I know who is also going to come on your podcast. But we can magnify life force energy. And this video of me is that I am glowing blue, just like Kirlian photography. And there's all the other people of just standard, and they're in this very powerful place. So it can't be the place. It's something to do specifically. And I was doing an experiment, just walking around with this device that we've created to magnify life force energy. And surprise, surprise, it also contains earth elements, but also precious metals like gold and silver. So what it was doing is, like I explained, is I'm bringing the frequencies of the earth into me and magnifying them. So, and the other people were not glowing as much. And this affords me lots of protection and lots of healing. I suppose I could go out and lie in the grass all day, but I wouldn't get any work done, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
We had, as much as I love it, we have to bring those frequencies in, and we've developed a technology to do that. And Kelly will talk about how she does that in the next in your next podcast. But just to explain to people, this quantum frequency trace technology is about taking those frequencies in nature, those building blocks, and embedding them into products. And we can embed them into carbon, silver, gold, platinum, copper, probably some more things, because they are scalar materials. They hold the frequency. The special thing about what we can do is that with what amazing Kelly can do is we can lock it in place. So all the time, this is resonating. I mean, that means vibrating, but it's not like a big loud vibration, so you can hear it, because that would be a bit annoying, right? But these we're talking about at the level of these dots. And that because you're putting the frequencies of nature and you've locked it, no interference frequencies can come in. So anything that's going to disrupt your quantum frequencies inside you is not going to happen, because you are now stronger. So I think the best way to describe this is, if you're in the swimming pool, if you're like in a swimming pool, a kind of like a smaller area, and there's waves going up and down, you can you can influence those waves because you've got control of that swimming pool. Whereas if you were in the middle of an ocean, because of you're just now chucked in the middle of ocean, you try and control those waves around you. You can't. You would have to become like a giant. You'd have to become very powerful. And that's effectively what we're doing at the moment. We're all being bombarded with these frequency waves that are disrupting us. You can't see them, but physically over time, you can see the effects. And Kelly and I have worked out how to measure this in people. And we do live demonstrations so people can see it. But what we've got is absolutely magic to the people that see it because they don't understand quantum. But it was invented in Birmingham, in the Midlands. And by embedding these frequencies, for instance, in phone stickers, what we do these live demonstrations of is we get people out on stage and we do what's called a kinesiology test. You know kinesiology? Yeah. So your muscles, we know, run on electricity around your body. But wherever you've got electricity, you always have magnetism. You can't have magnetism without having electricity or electricity without magnetism. They're two sides of the same coin. So imagine that your quantum biofield, if you want to, for want of a better word, is made of magnetic fields that are flowing in a particular direction. That's what we call charge in magnetism. I'm not talking about electrical charge. I'm talking about magnetic charge. So it'll be flowing either clockwise or anti-clockwise. But you're made up of billions of these, right? You've got billions of atoms inside you. If you've ever been to do bumper cars and all the cars are all going around the track in the right way, you know it's all nice and everybody's flowing. It only takes one idiot to go the wrong way and disrupt the flow, right? And that's exactly how all toxins work and how EMF radiation works, but also how anything with a battery works. All batteries, for some unknown reason, have a charge that's opposite, that's natural to our bodies. All of them in the whole world. They could all be made, by the way, to be harmonious with us, but they're all made the opposite charge. And that's a little bit like one person in that bumper car going the wrong way. So how do you correct it? The guy comes out, he neutralises it, turns it round and makes that car flow the right way. And now we're all in harmony again. And that's exactly how our biofield defense stickers work, because we've embedded the frequencies of nature which flow with us. They've got the correct negative charge into these stickers. You put them on the phone, and when you hold the phone, those frequencies that were going to be the opposite way around, i.e. the idiots going the wrong way around the track, are forced to go the correct way. And that's exactly how that technology works. And that's what harmonization is called, where we get everything to flow the right way and not disrupt you. And then with the Terra Christus, as we called, and what was happening to me, we're now adding that, we're building that, we're making it stronger. So we are literally, instead of like those little bumper cars, we've just put all V8 engines in. Right.
That sounds so dangerous in that particular analogy.
But we put them around a bigger track, though, so don't worry about that now. Right. So now they're really powerful. So if you're a big V8 engine and there's a bit, travelling around, you're not easily blown off course anymore because now you have a powerhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds amazing. And I love the sound of that. And you have those stickers not just for phones, but for other things as well?
Yeah, so people put them on like the Wi-Fi units, but really what they're doing is they're working with you. So when we do the kinesiology demonstrations, when they hold the mobile phone, so we do this test and we get people live out in the audience and we like the most sceptical people, and they're usually blokes, but not always. The grumpiest looking ones we get out to the front because we want people to look at their faces. And we tell them to put their arm out to the side. And then we say, we're going to push your arm down, but you're going to resist. And they resist, and we can feel how strong they are. Different people have got different strengths. We then ask them to hold their mobile phone in the other hand, so it's not disrupting this, and then push their arm down. And especially in some people, it's extremely weak. And we say, try again. And they're like, I can't resist it. Because we're disrupting their magnetic field, we are then disrupting the electrical field. And when we do that arm pushing test, actually that electrical circuit is the electrical circuit, that the nervous system that flows into your brain. So it's actually switching off the nervous system of your brain. And then when we say, okay, hold a sticker, so we just get them to hold a sticker, and they're like, this isn't going to work. They're back strong, and they honestly can't believe it. And we tell the audience, look at the person's face. I mean, I could be pushing harder or not, but that person's face says everything. And this is because we are then stopping those idiots going the wrong way around the track. We're turning them to V8 engines, and now we're putting everything on a bigger track. And then we're not susceptible to any of this. But then we've also worked out that if we create those stickers, and get back to the water, we've got stickers called quantum water charges. We worked out that if you put those frequencies into water and then drink the water, those frequencies remain in you for 24 hours. So I don't have to hold my phone or anything anymore. Because the water's in me and I am water, I'm basically running now a hydrogen-coded program, right? I'm now a computer, and my software is running that code, all of those frequency codes of nature. And when you do the same test, I would say probably 8 times out of 10, the person is stronger than they were before. Never mind how strong, because like I said, they've now got all these V8 engines and their biofield is very strong and very big because we've restored them in nature. We also repeat this experiment with people when we do festivals in a field. And basically, the stickers and drinking the water is exactly the same as if we were to ground them in the earth. Because when we do these experiments and show to people, hold your mobile phone, it has no impact when you're grounded to the earth. But who walks around barefoot on the earth? We're all on lilo flooring and carpet and concrete. That isn't the earth. That's not grounding. So with the amazing work Kelly did 6 years ago on all the research, we're able to ground people to the earth without getting your feet wet. And we do it in those two different ways.
Just quite remarkable.
It's magic. You would have thought it would be all over the news and in science journals, right? But
well,
maybe one day.
Yes, maybe one day. That's what we're here to conquer, isn't it?
Exactly.
But what did you start out doing? Because this wasn't your life at the beginning, was it?
So my first degree, I was really interested in genetics. So my first degree is in genetics and microbiology. I actually choose genetics as my honours degree, but I did them both the same. And that was at the University of Birmingham. I then did a master's degree in oncology, which was teaching me the medical and the scientific side of it, which was really, really interesting. And then I did a PhD in immunology, where we were looking at vaccines and things like that, but also the whole study of immunology, which in the end surprised me, right? Because when I did immunology as my first degree, I would say immunology is like rocket science and brain surgery cobbled together. It has a whole vocabulary of its own. It's a whole science of its own. And I hated it the first time I did it because it was just so much to remember. It was just so complicated. But then I did it more in my master's degree. And then I did, in my master's degree, the most complicated part of the immunology, which is working on the complement cascade.
That kind of gives me nightmares.
Is that good? Got some PTSD then, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
and really, then my PhD was focusing in on that. So that surprised me, that whole journey. But that is all about your innate immune system, but thinking about it from a scientific point of view. But I then started working with universities and inventors in the public and private sector who had new inventions, because I wasn't less interested in these research papers because I could see that was a bit of a game and I couldn't be bothered to play the politics. And I wanted to actually see good things happen to humanity. So I worked in 3D printing, in aerospace, in chemical engineering, all sorts of things, and some amazing inventions that would still be back of a fag packet and now actual real live products. And one of them is a printing technology called high-speed sintering, also called selective absorption fusion, which would still be on the back of a fag packet if it wasn't for me, bridging between the science and the reality of business. But then when 2020 hit and I could see what was going on, I spent all of my spare time researching how to detox the body. Where were we getting all these toxins from? And it was from the water, it's from the food, loads of stuff I didn't know. I mean, I was a personal trainer as well, part-time at that. I was always interested in fitness and health. So when I went through my own detox and saw a massive transformation, and I would say I probably don't look very much older now than I did 10 years ago from reverse engaging. And a lot of that has been due to detoxing my body, remineralizing my body, strengthening my biofield. So much so that, 3 months ago, someone took a picture of me and I'm literally glowing blue, just like curly in photography. And we all as humans should be living like this. All of us should have this. And I just want to educate people into what they can do. And that is, for instance, we've got on the website, crystalwaterexperience.com, I've got a free detox guide, 5-step process. And I say to people, just do one thing every week, because you don't know what's wrong with you until you remove the things that could be causing it.
That's true. That's very true.
And creating that guide now, we've had hundreds of downloads of it. And so many people have said, I didn't realise that my perfume, the fake fragrance, is a toxin. I didn't realise you could just clean your home with just, some white vinegar, add a bit of water, put some essential oil in, and it'll save you loads of money, and you're no longer poisoning your pets, your kids, and you. And you can just start thinking then. So I created that detox guide because I've seen the better way, basically, Debs.
Yeah, and we should all be thinking more like that. Not just to save the environment, which is what it's touted to, but just to allow ourselves to be free to think and not imbibe more toxins than necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make it personal as well, haven't you? People need to see tangible gains. I mean, it's great that it helps the environment. I'm not knocking that at all, obviously, but people can't get as invested in that if they don't see change, whereas you can if you bring it home to you, literally.
And literally, you just created a brilliant point. All of the toxins of the world all seem to come from the petrochemical industry. They're all from petrol. All synthetic ingredients are all from petrol. Now, how is anything from petrol, like any plastics, like the wind turbines, all that kind of technology, how is any of that going to be helping the environment? Because if you make everything from plant sources, you will have automatically be able to have this carbon oxygen cycle going. And we know, don't we, that hemp, you can make any plastic that you can make out of petroleum pretty much out of hemp. Like whether it's like drinking cups or containers or clothes or anything. And the frequency of hemp is so natural to the human body. It adds to our biofield, it's negatively charged, it's beautiful for us. But polyester, the opposite. It steals our charge, it makes us sick. And you just wonder why. I mean, I met a hemp farmer from the UK, and his first field got burnt down by the environmental agency because he didn't have a permit. So they burnt it and put all the carbon in the air. But there aren't any hemp processing plants in the UK because none of them get a license. And you think then, at the end of the day, this is all about money, not common sense. It's always about money. So we, the people, need to educate ourselves because you're not going to get it at school.
No.
The media's not going to tell you because they certainly don't make their money out of selling the 200,000 newspapers they do a day. I mean, they don't make money out of that. They're making money in other ways. We have to start listening to podcasts like this, educating ourselves, changing our choices, and supporting small businesses so they can grow instead of chucking money at the big guys who are just literally destroying the planet, destroying our way of life, destroying our health.
And I'd like to thank you for bringing what you do to the world and offering like the free detox to people, because that's an education resource, isn't it? where people can start to experience these things for themselves. And that's where real change is going to happen, in my belief.
Yeah, thank you, Debs. I've seen so many people who've gone through that detox journey, and very quickly, like within a couple of weeks, they can see the benefits and they kick themselves and go, why didn't I do this sooner? And I had a lovely lady that I was speaking to recently, and I kept saying, usually what happens is allergies go. Allergies are just usually toxic build up, your body's in inflammatory mode, and then it overreacts. And she goes, well, I suffer with terrible hay fever. I'll be the proof of the pudding if that's true. And she changed her water. She started taking the detox capsules that I had, and her hay fever completely went. And just things like that, just like being constantly bunged up. And you don't realise how much these things get you down. And now she's not going to have hay fever anymore.
Which is just beautiful, isn't it?
I'm not saying that she doesn't react to that thing. It's just her body doesn't overcompensate because it's not in inflammatory crisis 24/7.
And that's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Little ways to change the world, one person at a time.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming. It's been a delight.
Thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed the conversation as usual. And thank you for allowing us to speak about crystal water experience and quantum reality. And I hope your listeners didn't feel it was too deep. And
I hope you've blown their minds just a little bit.
Okay, I do hope that a bit.
Yeah, thank you, my darling.
Thank you very much.